Hello and welcome to Scoop News Group's series on the new business of government. I'm Jake Williams. We're here with Rob Cary. He's the Chief of Innovation and Technology for the Virginia Department of Transportation. Rob, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So Rob, agencies have more data than ever before. And how easy or hard is it for decision makers to get to and to make sense of that data?
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. There is more data every day, and not just in transportation, every field across the globe. And it can be a challenge. So what VDOT has done is really focused our data on the outcomes that we're desiring. We really, while we have a lot of data, we really focus our efforts in digging deep into that data in how we plan our roads, how we build our roads, are we on time, on budget, and making that data completely transparent to the public. We also have a new process that we've implemented called Smart Scale, which is a prioritization process across all modes of transportation that is used to determine which projects score the best, which then is put before our Commonwealth Transportation Board, and they ultimately bring the human factor in deciding which ones get done, but it provides them a very data-driven process that selects $1 billion worth of projects. Now this year we had about $9 billion in requests. So that prioritization process really focused them to select what they felt were the best projects, and they had some real data behind those decisions, which was not always the case historically. So I think for the public, they're getting a product that they know has been very well vetted and will produce results for them. So that's what we use data in all different ways, whether it's our bridge management system and determining which bridges to work on and what treatments to do with them. Our pavement management system, we similarly look at, do we totally reconstruct that pavement? Do we just put a thin overlay on it? We try to minimize the cost, spread that money as far as we can, but provide the optimal life cycle treatment for those pavements. So those are just some examples of how we're using that. And all of those data sets are very transparent to the public, and we make a real point of putting that out there to the public because we feel it's what gets measured gets done, and what people are watching, it really gives us credibility in the public's eyes that we're putting that data out there and saying, this is how we're doing it, this is the results we're achieving.
That's great, and it's cool. It's been cool to see that transparency movement really take hold in state and local government. Yeah. What are some of the challenges that your agency faces in executing, planning, budgeting, and forecasting some of these activities?
Well, I would say that clearly, I talked about the fact that the needs can exceed our resources. We had, as I mentioned, with our capital program, we had $9 billion in requests. And those requests did not come from individuals. These were all from local governments, regional planning bodies, our MPOs. They came from, in Virginia, we have planning district commissions. They came from transit agencies. My point with that is these were vetted through a well thought out process. And for take Fairfax County, our largest county. They went through a process with their staff and their elected leaders to vet which projects they wanted to put forward. So we know the projects we get from our local governments and the other partners I mentioned have been well vetted and are real needs in that community that need to be met. Now, unfortunately, with $1 billion available to meet those needs and $9 billion requests, there's obviously some of those are not being met, but we can be absolutely sure that those that we're putting forward have been well vetted and are meeting clearly demonstrated needs. But all across everything we do, there's so much data available, and we use that again and again to meet the needs that the public wants. I mean, we are an agency that is about plan, delivering, operating, and maintaining the third largest state-maintained highway system in the country. That's a lot of responsibility on everyone in VDOT to make sure that we stretch those resources as far as we can. And doing that requires us to get the data into everybody's hands. I mean, everybody from our field maintenance employees. We're currently implementing a highway maintenance management system that will result in a lot more technology in the field, a lot more data flowing to them out in the field, work requests from citizens flowing right to a handheld device when they're out there in the field. If I just finished working on this pothole and there's another work request in the nearby area, they'll know about it and they can do that. It brings efficiency to everything they do and make sure that we're responding to the public effectively and as quickly as we can.
That's fascinating, and that responsiveness, that's definitely the key.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about how your agency is helping managers make more data-driven decisions around budget allocations? You mentioned this a little bit, mission readiness and or program services to that core customer base.
Absolutely. As I've said, we use data in everything we do. We are I would, if I left you with one point, it's that VDOT is a data-driven organization. We make our decisions based on data. We have, as I mentioned, third largest state maintained system in the country. We have 125,000 lane miles of pavement. We take the money and we put about $500 million a year into paving across the entire Commonwealth. We take that money, but we every year we look at the condition of our existing infrastructure on the roads and bridges. We then go through and we model what would be the optimal treatments with $500 million in an asset management approach to maximize the outcome and the life cycle cost for what we do. That then is distributed out to each of our 9 districts across the state as recommendations for and their allocation. Which part of the pie do they get to do that with? And that's based on that data. They then review those recommendations in the field. So you bring that human element to the process, and they can look out there and see if what had been modeled based on our statewide inventory of the assets matches with what they're seeing. Sometimes they'll make adjustments to that, but generally we're probably within 10 or 15% of what was recommended is what actually gets done. There's maybe that 10 or 15% adjustment. But that's how we drive the decisions and what gets paved. Similarly, with our bridge program, we do the federally required biannual inspections. Then we look at what the issues are, and we take the money that we have available for bridge condition, and the money we have for improving our bridge condition and pavement condition is really driven by the conditions that are out there. And we allocate the funding. If a district's pavements are particularly bad or particularly good, a district is going really well in the pavements, may see a little less money so that some money can be put into a district that needs to improve those. Similarly with bridges, trying to bring the whole state to a level condition there. And we drive those decision makings with bridge too, so that we look at that on a life cycle cost. What's the optimal treatment to prolong the life of that asset and minimize the expenditure? Obviously, sometimes a bridge or a pavement get to a point we have to replace it, but we always are striving to maintain what we got. We obviously have a lot of bridges across the state that are, they're not young, they're older, and they take more care and maintenance, but taking a very data-driven, thoughtful approach to how we do it is how we make those decisions. Similarly, I mentioned Smart Scale earlier. Our Smart Scale process is a process, data-driven, multimodal prioritization process that ranks projects across the state. Those projects are ranked on things that matter to people. It's ranked on how they will help congestion. It is ranked on how they will deal with the environment, how they affect the environment, how they affect safety, how they affect economic development, so forth. Each of those are scored identically around the state. Every project falls through that same lens. They're measured and scored. And then different areas around the state have different weightings. So we allowed sort of the regional areas to select what they wanted to see. The only thing the law did say is that in Northern Virginia, as an example, congestion relief had to be the #1 factor.
Right.
But it gave them flexibility in what percentage they wanted to put to those things. So in some of the rural areas of the state, they felt economic development and safety were the most important. So they weighted those more highly. But once we do that, we rate all we put them in a list of 1 through however many projects. We provide that to our Commonwealth Transportation Board. And generally, they have followed that list. They've made some adjustment. They've typically been at the fringe projects that were on and off the list.
Right.
And the reality is that system, while it's very good, is not so precise that to say project number 80 is clearly way better than project number 83. So it was perfectly appropriate that they would have that flexibility and do that. But I hope you see it. Those are some examples of how we're using data to do that. And it's with the Smart Scale, our data, what we're looking for is to look out the windshield, not the rear view mirror. A great example of that is on safety. Just because a road has safety issues where maybe they've had fatalities and so forth, didn't necessarily mean it scored high in relative to safety. Because if the project were to install cameras, let's say, those cameras aren't going to affect the crashes that take place. So it didn't score, that would not have scored well in safety. But if that project, if the crashes we've seen there were single vehicle run off the road crashes, and the project that they proposed was edge line rumble strips that were great for single vehicle run off the road crashes, very effective, very inexpensive treatment, it would score really high in safety. And the other thing I should have mentioned around the Smart Scale, we score all the project's benefits, and then we normalize all of it by dividing those benefits by the cost of that project.
Sure.
So that a very expensive project has to have very big benefits. A less expensive project doesn't have to have the same value benefits.
Right.
But that you can compare, you know, a project in Northern Virginia with 100,000 vehicles a day to a project in a rural part of the state that has 5,000 vehicles a day. And what we saw was that using our process, that those projects are distributed very, very well geographically around the state. They're big projects, small projects. There didn't seem to be any pattern in terms of any favoritism or anything towards one type or another. And I think that has just proven out to be a very good process. And you know, when you're allocating $1 billion, it can get a lot of attention. And while it's got a lot of attention, it has overwhelmingly been very positive attention.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And so, you know, the last question, you know, you talked a little bit about your transparency efforts, and you talked a little bit about how you're engaging other folks in this decision-making process. But how is VDOT working to put data into the hands of more decision makers to make those day-to-day decisions, and not just in the hands of analysts or senior management or in the big picture?
Right. Well, I would say that's actually our complete model, is to put it in the hands of the people making those decisions. And that data being completely transparent, we have a dashboard. We measure 24 different items on the dashboard that are directly linked to things people care about. The condition of pavement, the condition of bridges, how we're doing with delivering projects on time, how we're delivering projects on budget, how we're doing with our, and some internal things, vacancy rate for human resource measures, or how we're you know, dealing with the DBE community and getting, you know, how much work is going out to the smaller women minority-owned vendors. We measure all of these things, our environmental compliance. But that's in the hands of every one of our employees. And I think a great example of that is, if you were the project manager on the smallest project in Virginia or the largest project in Virginia, when a citizen goes to the website to look at their project and see what the status is it on time, what's the next milestone, if they have a question, there's a hot link to your name. It's not to the commissioner's name, it's not to my name, there's a hot link directly to that project manager, the person responsible for that project. So that again brings that accountability. They know that the 8.5 million people in Virginia, and whoever outside Virginia might want to look at it, can go there and see what's happening with their project, go directly to that individual to get questions answered. Similarly, I mentioned our highway maintenance management system. We're going to be providing data directly out to the field. Those supervisors out there managing a group of 10 or 12 maintenance workers, they will be connected at all times. And we tie that in with our customer service center, so they know the biggest requests. They can search, they can drill down in their area. What are the top requests? What are outstanding requests that maybe have taken a little longer than they should have, that I can follow up on and make sure we're on top of that stuff. And so we put that data in the hands of the deliverers of our services so that they can do that. And then obviously our managers and senior management follow that and make sure that across the agency we're getting the results we want. If not, we can follow up where we need to. But I think that we have a system right now that's used, you know, literally from the guys out in the field to our commissioner, and it's a consistent system. Everybody's seeing the same data. There's no special system at different levels. Everybody gets that data, and that's what you're held accountable to.
That's great. Well, Rob, thanks for being with us. I
Absolutely.
appreciate all the thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm Jake Williams for Scoop News Group. We're with Rob Cary. He's the Chief of Innovation and Technology for the state of Virginia's Transportation Department. Thanks for watching.